Welcome to the BleedRedblacks Podcast with your hosts Mike, Colin, Keenan, and Santino. Produced by Mark and Johnny Z. BleedRedblacks starts now.
I already forget what Colin's intro is. I've never actually done an intro. Welcome to Season 3, Episode 16 of the BleedRedblacks Show. I'm your host, Mike Smith, in the house. I'm missing, of course, Colin and Keenan, both away on the road. And I am back after missing this place for almost 3 weeks, I believe. Mark, is that 3 weeks? All right, I remembered how to get here. So we're going to call this the condo edition, because on the show with me is Mr. Keenan Waller himself, filling in and helping us get through this show. So Keenan, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm great. Those are huge boots to fill, though. I got to admit, I used GPS to get here.
Yeah, so did I a long time ago. So tell us a little bit about yourself. I call it the condo edition because you are the Red Black fan from above, as we like to say. I always get a kick out of all these pictures I'm seeing from way up above. Tell us about that.
Yeah, well, living the dream, I guess. So after many bad real estate decisions in a row, I think my wife and I finally got it right. And when we saw the Lansdowne plans, it just seemed like this was for us, because not only like living downtown, but of course huge football fans. So yeah, it's been about a year living on the 16th floor overlooking the stadium, and our first full season seeing the team play in front of us. It's been phenomenal. And
now we can see you. I always say that. Now that we can see you, you've got the red light. What do you call that up there?
Yeah, I've got, 3 kind of siren deals going on. I have one for each window now. You missed the last game, so that the sirens have expanded.
You've upgraded.
Yes, I was alarmed I wasn't getting credit for the other windows, so we grew it to 3, and apparently it made the difference. I got a lot additional comments than usual.
So I'm just going to throw this out there. The condo board, everybody's happy with your addition to the to the decor, one would say, of the condo, because that was always my concern when I started seeing you put some stuff up. Who's the first neighbor to complain? And I bet you they're not football fans.
Your question is extremely timely, as we just became a condo basically today. Up until now, we have not been a condo.
Oh, okay.
So I've been, flouting the rules. However, I've made sure that all of my installations are, in fact, removable. So
yes.
As needed, I could start taking them down and putting them back up with every game. But I think, considering it faces the field, I'm not sure who it offends, and I think the football players like it. So
I think it's amazing. We're big fans of it. Now, I got to ask you, you were a Northsider previously.
I was a Northsider, but I got to tell you, I grew up a West Ender.
Yeah.
Now I'm back in the West End zone, just 16 floors higher. So I think it all works out.
Easy way to renew season tickets now, right? You're like, yes. I live here. What else do you want from me, man? Come on, Jeff, relax. Mr. Hunt, come on now. So with that being said, we're going to call this the intro. We're going to have a normal show here, basically. But we're in this intro, we want to kind of do a look back at that last week's game a little bit. And Keenan, I know that you have a few things to say about Henry Burris and how well he did. And what are your thoughts from last week's game? I unfortunately was not in town to see it. The people that had my tickets enjoyed them. But give us a breakdown so we can kind of cry together how badly that ended up last Friday night.
Yeah, I know everyone's kind of labeling it one of those snatching the defeat from the jaws of victory, and it really was. One of those games, it just seemed that the offense was running so smoothly, and there didn't seem to be any adjustments that Hamilton could make to slow them down much. It was a matter of, are we getting a field goal or a touchdown every time, not a punt in the first half, as I recall. And the defense, it wasn't outstanding, but it was bending and not breaking, and so it seemed like, well, if we score every time and they score once in a while, this is going to be, your sort of 45-26 kind of game by the end of things. And I don't know what happened with the halftime speeches, but they won that one.
Yeah, that's what we talk about with those adjustments there. If you want to incorporate a little bit more adjustment, is what you're thinking this team needs to do. I unfortunately didn't see last game, but over the last few games, it seems this is a team, we're going to talk later on about how they can't close out. So it's either going to be, we're talking about players' ability or scheming and coaching. So it's one of the two. I wanted to ask you, there was a lot of empty seats because of the rain. I think you had a little bit of a theory about that and what the team can be doing and to help that. You talked about their ability to communicate with the fan base. And what are your thoughts on that?
I think you have to do a little better than just saying, yeah, it's raining, but that's okay. Calming down will be a great time, because the fact of it was, when you looked over the stadium by the fourth quarter, there was, some of the sections usually full of Red Blacks fans. The biggest crowd was, yellow Hamilton ponchos, because people had abandoned. And the fact is that people are busy and they don't necessarily plan very well. And I'd be sure as heck giving out ponchos and, if not selling merchandise, at least giving out the dollar store style ponchos to anybody that wanted them, and just making them as comfortable as possible and offering them, things they could buy. And I had a good friend hadn't been to a game this year, and that was his family for the first time. And I got to give him credit. They sat it through it in the South Lower, but they were wet and cold.
Well, I agree with that poncho decision. You see that in south of the border. There's, dollar plastic ponchos that are being sold. If you don't buy the team one for $5, then you can definitely get something to wear for $1. I'm with that. And I think the use of social media and kind of gearing up and getting the fans ready to be kind of soaked would help that definitely. We talked a little bit off the air about rituals and what this team's doing on the side of in-game entertainment. I know you have some thoughts on that, Keenan. You're always on top of those things. Let us know what you think.
Yeah, definitely just looking for more rituals. I mean, I think all of us, I can't find a single person who wasn't thrilled when they came up with the lumberjack theme, and everyone loves the
and
team,
the lumberjill,
the loggers, and absolutely, and that's great. Although I have heard people say it's a little harder to see them this year because they got moved into the log cabin, and so I'm not sure what much can be done about that. But also just like to see, I know fans develop their own traditions, but I remember a lot of us, I think you included, before the team even started, we were talking about, there's that college team that has the Red Blacks, and they do, one side's red and one side's black, and they get it going back and forth. And I thought that would have happened, if not our first season, at least by now, but I think the team would need to support it.
You and I are on the same page when it comes to what the team can do for in-game entertainment. Because I'm with you. It just seems that board, that beautiful, huge video board and scoreboard, of course, that sits in that end zone is not being utilized enough. And I'll be honest, I have a great rapport, and I won't name the OSEG executive, but I do have a good rapport with one of them, and I did send a great idea to them about setting up something that can be done. And what's great about this team is if you do have a rapport with them, they will listen. And they do listen sometimes to this show, believe it or not. But what happens is they will take into account maybe ideas we have. One of the ideas we had here in this studio was quiet on offense, which seems to still be an issue in a stadium with football history here in Ottawa. And Colin had a great idea. Why not have a couple of the players videotaped in a library, making a little noise, and one of the big lads coming over and saying, shh, beautiful, we're on offense. And then something on the other side, of course, to get everybody fired up for defense. So I'm with you on that. But overall, I got to say, though, it's great to have football back and continuing to do all these great, wonderful things like having the Bleed Red Blacks. And you and I are we're members of the Facebook Our Nation Facebook page, however you want to say that. Yeah. And we are, we're what do you call those, moderators there?
That's right, yes.
So that's how we've gotten to know each other over online.
Yes, we're exercising all of our great powers.
Great powers, exactly. So, Keenan, it's good to have you on the show. We're going to talk a little bit, near the end of the show, we're going to talk about season ticket renewals to get into that. But up next after this promo, we're going to go right into the game preview, so we'll be right back.
Never again will you see rings on your table with the CFL-approved OLG Coaster Yellow Edition. It's easy. Go to your local OLG retailer, place a bet on a parlay with no research, watch your bet lose, and boom!
Coaster!
Bet on the Ticats to beat the Red Blacks?
Coaster!
Bet on the Argos to win the East?
Coaster!
Coaster come in a variety of price ranges from $2 to $100.
After Rake and Juice, you'll never be a long-term winner, but you will always win a coaster with OLG.
Welcome to the Coaches Roundtable on the Bleed Red Blacks Podcast.
All right, welcome back It's Keenan and myself again. Here we rocking game preview. We're getting ready this week. Ottawa visits Winnipeg. They're coming off a bye week. On a week previous that Winnipeg went into BC, real barn burner, erased a 10-point deficit to stun the Lions at home. And here we have Ottawa coming off an OT loss. So who's trending in the right direction here? I'm a little bit.
Winnipeg playing for a game with meaning for them. So
exactly. Yeah. We've got a lot to prove this week. Exactly. Winnipeg is sitting in that comfy 2 spot right now. They're in fact tied with BC. Don't ask me about the tiebreaker rule. I need a calculator. But Ottawa controls their destiny this week. And one thing Ottawa knows how to do is win on the road. So that's a positive.
That's true.
We have something to look forward to. One thing I want to talk about this week is we know the West is dominating the CFL this year. The question I have, are we just waiting to see who will play Calgary in the Grey Cup, or could there be a surprise in the West? And could Winnipeg be that surprising team? Are they trending in the right direction now? We'll know by Friday night. And of course, we'll know for the last week of the year as we face them twice. But it could be kind of scary if they start trending in the right direction. So
definitely. And I was just looking ahead to some comments in the Winnipeg newspapers, and they're pretty aware of how great a job the Blue Bombers have done with takeaways this year, and they're winning. The stats on that are unbelievable, and so that's. Rightly, I think our coaching staff is aware if we lose the turnover battle, we're not winning this game. So.
Yeah, two of their players, can't name them off the top of my head, are in the top 10 for interceptions there. Keys to the game offense. So quickly, talking about outside of BC, the Bombers are the stingiest defense in the West. So again, that goes back to the turnovers. But what does that stingy defense mean for our, what I like to refer to as explosive offense? What does it mean for us this week?
I think it means the way we played the first half last week is just about right. Control, offense, short passing, running game was mixed in nicely, some first downs, some series of 10-yard runs by Moses Madu, for example, because the passing game was so effective.
So what do you think, though? What about, so going back to that, we talked about it briefly earlier, was the changes that were made during halftime. What do we see this week? Do you want to your blood pressure is getting up a little bit, Keenan?
It's because my father-in-law was yelling at me so loudly and on the balcony. I didn't have room to get away because he was so mad. Why did we change the offense? And then every caller on the radio shows after were asking the same question, and the players were somewhat diplomatic and saying, I don't know, it's a coaching decision. We went away from that as if we were kind of playing to hold on to the lead, which not necessarily the right move with our defense this year. So I would say stick with that Henry Burris quick passing, no huddle or sweet huddle, whatever they want to call it. But it kept the defense off balance. They didn't have time to change players, and it just seemed the rhythm. Henry was in this beautiful rhythm, and the receivers were right on board with it too.
Well, so that goes back to maybe some of what I'd like to see, coming up in this Friday would be exactly that, Burris getting back into that rhythm that we know he has, the rhythm that he had last year. And maybe it's because he's a few games behind is maybe part of it, but it could go to some of that play calling as well, which is leading me to see a team that has zero killer instinct. And the scariest stat we have right now is Winnipeg's 4-0 at home when leading in the fourth quarter. So this is a team, again, goes back to that stingy defense. We're going to have to find a way to not take our foot off the pedal and make sure that whatever adjustments the Ottawa Redblacks make offensively at the half are ones that continue to help them roll towards the end zone. We've been praising Ernest Jackson all year. This guy just continued to be that workhorse. And I can't speak enough about this guy, and I'll say it right now. He could have taken the year off. You know what I mean? Like, He was walking into this year, his second year with the Ottawa Redblacks. He was nowhere to be talked about last year. Yet he's still showing up at practice and putting the work in from what my sources are telling me, and the eye in the sky maybe out there in the condo, as he's still putting the work in. So you can speak to Ernest Jackson, how awesome he's doing as well, right?
I just find the fact you talk about just the sticky hands. The guy does not drop passes. You can hit him, you can jump in front of him. He just won't. If he gets near it, he doesn't drop it. And they were talking about this on TSN, who's actually learned a few things about Ottawa, which is great. But they were mentioning how, Paris Jackson he's leading the league in not dropping the ball. And just that work ethic, other than maybe a guy like Jamil Smith, you can't miss noticing at practice. Jackson's the other guy that just works and works and works. And the reason people don't talk about it, he doesn't talk about himself much.
No, he's the quintessential interview when he's talking about the team. He's great at that. And I'm with you. He goes up the ladder like no other player in the CFL. And I don't know his height offhand, but he's a big boy. He might be a little bit taller than you. In fact,
perhaps a tiny bit more toned.
Just a little bit. So we talked about Winnipeg in the trenches versus the secondary interception machine that they have. Burris needs time and space to make big plays this week, and we're gonna. I think this is the week that we have to see on the road a team that can gel together offensively on the offensive line, giving Burris that time. He needs to start doing the right things now before we're worried about him doing the right things postseason into that playoff run. So you talked a little bit about, I know you wanted to bring up some of the offensive line issues. Anything you want to add to that? I know you got
I don't think there's no easy fix at this time in the season, and it just calls for that quick passing because it's not going to be 4 or 5 seconds. It just doesn't happen this year. So I will just say that if Brad Sinopoli is actually not involved much in this Winnipeg game, we'll be in big trouble because he's going to need to be getting those 5-7 yard sort of passes and turning them into 10-15 yard gains and forcing the D-line up so we'll get some of those longer passes.
Yeah. I know you were mentioning about shifting JaMychal Dean to right tackle and Alex Mateus into left guard. I mean, those are some concerns you saw?
Well, sure. I think we've just seen all year they have trouble, and it's going to be tough against Winnipeg. They got some pretty awesome, powerful pass rushers. So I think we have to scheme for that and just plan. Like the idea isn't we're going to have this impenetrable wall. It's going to be a bit of deception and a lot of quickness.
Well, that brings up I'm going to bring up the keys to the game defense now, because we're talking about that front line of Ottawa, and maybe that is some of the issue that we're seeing this year is the offensive line hasn't been 100% gelling, leaving obviously Henry with not enough time and Harris with the same situation. But let's talk about the defensive line. I mean, it seems like our front boys are taking a brunt of the issue this year, as far as I'm concerned anyways.
Yeah.
So I got to ask the defensive line, where are you? You guys okay?
Yeah, I think that's been a big question. And what's hard to tell is we don't know as much about the secondary because is it that opposing quarterbacks are having so much time that anybody would have open players? Because sometimes our secondary looks great. Like Pruno seems to be settling in. He had I thought a very solid game back in safety, which is not.
He's finally adjusting somewhat. You think?
That's hard. It's a big difference, and he's been quiet about it. But I saw some. He's really getting a hold of it, and his talent's coming out, and he can hit people. And he had that interception and a couple other close ones. But it's really hard to tell where the issues are.
And that's it. Is it play calling or poor performance is part of that issue that we're now facing on the defensive side of the ball. Yeah. So I got an easy stat here for you. Last 3 games, and this is just me again using the box scores because CFL is so awesome at stats. One thing the CFL is good at is stats. 3 games, 7 sacks total for Ottawa Redblacks defense. The secondary blitz packages have worked in 2 to 3 of those 7 sacks, which includes Rose and Kene coming off the edge. Right. So that says to me a lot about not only play calling, but that defensive line's ability to start getting in there and making some noise. So if that's the case, then maybe we need to do some more of that play calling, or is that in fact what's causing some of the exposure in the secondary? We don't.
This is the catch-22. So obviously, live by the blitz, die by the blitz. So if we can do that a little more often, but then are we going to give up big plays?
I have a question. Is the Ottawa Sun family profile a kiss of death? Because Zach Evans, where have you been, son? Like your numbers are falling in line with last year, which is okay. But he's disappeared as the season progressed. If this is a contract year for him, I'm a little worried. Mm-hmm. And I'm using the word pedestrian only because, I go to these tailgates and I hang around some of these football fans, these guys that have been, these Southsiders that have been around for 100 years. And they were using the word pedestrian when talking about some of these guys.
Hashtag pedestrian from the South Side.
I know,
What's
right?
happening?
I know. And It's hard to disagree that there's some guys that just seem to be going through the motions this year. And I'm not sure, I'm not going to name names, but I'm just asking, I'm asking for a friend, basically. Is the Ottawa Sun Bruce Garriock / Stevenson? I don't know who wrote it, but that profile where Evans was basically profiled and he seems to have fallen off the edge here. But Damaso Munoz, he's going the opposite direction.
Right.
So maybe it's, maybe some guys are falling to the wayside, other guys are picking up the pace. But
we're lacking something on the defensive side, like this kind of the spiritual leadership. Like the offense has a lot of guys that lead through action, but also, really vocal, energetic type guys. And I don't see as much of that swagger from the defense. I mean, you need to make the plays to swagger about them, but still, where's the leadership? And I like you said, I thought maybe Zach would step up into that role this year.
We got a few more games for Abdullah Kene to do the same. I've said it here in studio. I don't think he's back next year if he continues to play the way he is. We could find Rose has definitely stepped up his playing, but Kene was that guy who was a little bit emotional last year. He seemed to reel it in, but then maybe with some players that play on the edge emotionally, that brings their game up. This year he's pulled back the emotional a little bit, and his game suffered. He's just taking the wrong angles on certain balls, and we're seeing it. I'm going to say the same things I said offensively. I think this is a statement game defensively. I think you need to start going out there. The last few games of the season is where you start building that momentum.
Agreed. And I love King Duel, and I loved last year, some of the penalties that he made that hurt us, but they were basically around ripping someone's head off. Is where he got a lot of bad penalties. And so you don't want to lose that energy at the same time. I appreciate that there seems to be a discipline this year in our secondary with penalties, and that was a huge issue. We had to acknowledge our team's been better. But where is sort of that fire? And I know Pruno gave it a good go last game with some leadership, but we need more.
This is a season, and we didn't see any turnovers last week, did we, from our defense? Interceptions?
Pruno did have a big one right on the goal line and ran it back to about the 50.
Awesome.
Big play.
That's what you miss when you're in Connecticut, like I was. ESPN 17 wasn't showing the game until 3 o'clock in the morning, if I remember.
That's no excuse.
No excuse. I know.
This is called Bleed Red Blacks. What's this stuff? I'm too old. I can't stay.
I love it when I have guests come in and just call me out for not watching the game. That's awesome. Welcome to the show, Keenan. You're welcome back anytime. I love it. No, but seriously, it is tough to. I actually didn't get to see the game last week. Literally, there was no place to watch it where I was. But I was definitely in New England Patriots territory, that's for sure. I know, boo. Too bad Colin isn't here, eh? He's such a Bengals fan. He's missing out two guys.
Oh, man.
If we had Santino here, too, it'd be like... There's a reason for three of us running the Our Nation Facebook page. We're all Steelers fans. We are the steel curtain of moderators.
Beautiful.
I like that. It just hit me now. Let's get back to the game preview here. Keys of game, special teams. Okay, special teams. Basically, I believe special teams could this year cost us a playoff game. Now, I know I missed last game, and I don't think anything special happened on special teams last week that could get me excited about where they're going. But nobody is a standout. Am I missing somebody that's a standout besides Jamil's run back?
Right.
Nothing. There's no standout. It's not like he's been doing fantastic this year either.
Well, I don't know what's going on with him. Hopefully he'll be back next game. Tristan Jackson, I mean, one thing that stood out for him, other than he had that one awesome return, but yeah, I mean, he did fumble, and this is a super reliable. One thing he does, he catches the ball and positions himself well. So that was just. It was a really rainy night. I'll just say that.
You're in the same boat as Colin and I talking about the kicking game. What about going 4-2?
Man, I was watching today in practice. What's his name? Early and Medeiros were kind of trading punts, and I thought, yep, they're both trading 40-yard punts. I'm not sure where this is going. And when I saw Medeiros early in the season, I thought, this is the guy. Like, I think in practice, I thought he was just booming them. I thought, yes, we need an elephant foot punter, like someone that will potentially kick it over someo's head and like change a game with a punt. And now we're just kind of like, oh, 30 net, that's pretty good. Like,
we're happy with that as a team.
Yeah, like it's not been an exciting year. We're going to win field position wars.
So I wonder what the wins are like in Winnipeg next week. Hopefully they're
something wild.
Something wild. It's not going to cause
just no punting.
No punts.
It was a fabulous first half.
Yeah. Well, so that gets back to, again, so special teams. I got to ask the question though. Overall, is I guess if you could be a great punter right now at university level, just keep practicing, because there's probably a job for you out there in the CFL.
Okay. Jobs for Canadian kickers.
There's a job for a Canadian punter out there. Yeah. I was thinking about practicing a little bit, see what happens. Uncle Rico, as Mark chirps at me, the old Uncle Rico.
Perfect timing.
Napoleon Dynamite. Amazing. You wanted to talk about review woes. Before we wrap, let's have a little bit of wrap-up session here because we have you in studio.
Okay.
What's the answer for review? You mentioned just that situation with Pruno, and what's your take on that? Because I'd like to hear it. I missed it.
I'm leaning towards, I think we have to get rid of reviews on interference and illegal contact plays, only because sure, the fan experience is also hurt by bad calls, but we still will have the review on if it's a touchdown or a turnover. But I think on a regular, 2nd and long, and the game's on the line, and the guy makes the play, and the fans go nuts, and then especially, we go to commercial break. I went to the washroom. I came back. Review? Oh, no.
Yeah.
The whole thing had changed, and yes, technically, when you slow it down, the receiver got in his way. He bumped him on his way to get the ball.
He sneezed.
But the officials on the field, they were right there, and for a reason they didn't call it. But technically now they have to apply the rule. And I just think most fans will be happier if the game is not slowed down and momentum is lost.
So human error becomes more of the process that we have to deal with then?
I think we have to learn to live with that, or else stop complaining. But I'm not going to stop complaining. I don't like it.
No, and we pretty much had a special on this podcast regarding special teams, and we talked briefly about my solution was adding another referee to another back judge. Because there's so much happening with the speed of the game now. And I'm not just saying that because it's 2016, but definitely you look at those old tapes of Matt Dunnigan slinging the ball. The guys are way faster now than they were when Matt was throwing it. And definitely with motion, the wide receivers in motion, there's so much going on. I agree with you. You brought up a good point as well, talking off air about, Sinopoli appeared to clearly score a touchdown. So we get back to that idea that there's a rule that's a rule, and then we don't even know the review rules to review, which upsets the fans. And then
they were so mad. Yeah.
When you've got 4 centimeters of water in your boots in the south side, there's no time to really figure that out, right?
That's right. And I felt bad for. It was a whole half of fans mad at Rick Campbell, and then the poor guy comes on the radio after, and he's like, well, yeah, I tried to challenge. They told me I couldn't. I was like, I wish someone could have informed us, more clearly about this sooner, and TSN was no help either. So.
Well, it seems like they're in the dark as well as broadcasters. Are they completely up to scratch on what the rules of review are? I don't know. I sat down here and we did a 25-minute assessment of the review rules, and I was learning something every 10 minutes, and I still wouldn't know when to throw that. I'd be throwing it every play. Just let's throw it, see if it sticks, see if we have a pass interference.
That's an odd one when in the process of reaching for the cone, the guy's foot may or may not have gone out of bounds, and it counts as, well, if he's out of bounds, the play's dead, even though the ball is literally moving through the air over the pylon, and there wasn't time for Hamilton to stop playing. So they might want to change that one.
So that wraps up the game preview. So in closing thoughts, I'm hoping this week we're going to see a couple of things happen with our Ottawa Red Blacks. Is momentum starts to shift the other way. Let's grab a lead. Let's hold a lead. Let's put a play package together on both sides of the ball, including special teams, that has that killer instinct. Number 2, let's not let this come down to a review. We don't need that as a team or fans. We can't take it anymore. So with that said, any thoughts on we've got 2 games against Winnipeg. Let's be honest with ourselves. Do we see ourselves going 2-0, or are we going to split this going in going towards the playoffs?
It's going to be really tough because they need this win. They want this just as badly. I think this first game on the road is where the story is really going to be told. And I don't want to be one of those old school East Division guys that goes, oh well, it wouldn't be so bad hosting Edmonton at home, but it wouldn't be so bad hosting Edmonton at home, and I'd actually look forward to that game. And then we would go on the road to Hamilton, where again we performed well on the road. You hate backing into a playoff situation, but as I was reading in some of the analysis, we do have a team that can score a lot of points, and that just lends some hope for whoever we play, that it's not one of those Ottawa teams where we'd have to scrape out an 11-10 win. We can put up 60 points, and I think, frankly, that is the road to victory.
Yeah, so hopefully we're putting up plus 35 this week in Winnipeg. All right, so we're going to come back. We're going to hear a little bit of that old Brazilian rant we like to hear from Santino. I have a feeling he's going to talk about something that we can talk about on the outro. Grey Cup tickets. Woo!
Welcome to the Red Black Renegade Rant with Santino Filoso.
Almost immediately after the season ticket holder prices for 2017 Grey Cup tickets were released, certain people in our nation began complaining about them. Now, while I do get that certain sections of the stadium have high ticket costs, let's not pretend this is some incredibly greedy cash grab by OSE. Keep in mind the 2017 Grey Cup is a championship game, and that it should not be compared to any regular season game. This is literally the biggest game at the highest level of pigskin in Canada. Not to mention, it only comes around once a decade or so. Those arguing that it's just the CFL, so Grey Cup ticket prices should be lowered, completely missed the point. It's a championship game in a professional sports league. And while there are sections where a ticket will cost you $400, the reality is that OSEG did a phenomenal job of offering our nation a variety of price points. Close to 6,000 tickets are available for less than $150. I paid that for an end zone seat last time the Grey Cup was in Ottawa back in 2004. Additionally, there's 12 other full sections that offer tickets for $250. The next level up from there is $325 tickets, which can be had in another 20 sections. Many seem to be bitching about how expensive it would be to stay in their season seats for the Grey Cup. My advice? Simple. Move. Nobody's forcing you to sit there, and with season ticket holders being offered a pre-sale in December, you'd still have your first choice of any other seat in the stadium. Furthermore, if you do wish to splurge on tickets, think about the fact that you won't be spending money on flights or hotels like you would on normal Grey Cup because the game's happening in your hometown. All in all, while the 2017 Grey Cup tickets aren't cheap by any means, they certainly aren't as outrageously priced as some people bitching online would have you believe. That's all for this week, guys. Rant back at Red Blackgade, and remember to bleed Red Blacks.
Are you sick and tired of being heckled for selling hot dogs outside TD Place with no permit?
Hey, you got a permit for that, bud?
Or your worries are over with the new 123 hot dog permit kit from 613 Sneaky Sausage. Send us your money, we send you a permit. It's as easy as doing a backflip after a punt. This permit also works for oysters, corn on the cob, stinky tofu, and lemonade stands. Get yours before it's too late. This has been a paid advertisement by the BRB Group. BRB does not endorse or suggest this product, but if you send us $50, we will print you anything you want.
All right, we just heard from Santino. Nice little rant talking about Grey Cup tickets. I like to say, show me the money. Show me that Grey Cup money, Jeff Hunt. How much are we talking? Well, I don't know. I'm asking the wrong guy here. It's probably part of the condo fees is a Grey Cup ticket.
Yes, my alleged free tickets, as people like to describe them.
Exactly.
But I have to see my mortgage first.
You have to see the money. I don't want to see it, thanks.
No, you don't.
But I'm telling you right now, I can't see the game from Woodruff and Carling. I'm just letting you know. You don't.
From the keys either.
You don't.
If I stand on the roof.
You don't want to see what I can see from Woodruff and Carling. That's all. Carlingwood, actually. That's about it. Fascinating.
Could be worse.
Welcome to the show. This is a geographical history of Ottawa. So it is renewal time. I'm going to go ahead and tell everybody here right now. I've renewed with Grey Cup tickets, and I've moved down from FF to F and closer to an exit, which is good for me because I drink like one beer and then I somehow pee out 5. Like I don't know. I'm at that age, right? Should get a PSA test again soon. See how that goes. And go for the depends, Mark says. Just go ahead and just enjoy the game in all its dampness.
Spoken like a gambling expert, I guess. I don't know.
Spoken like the guy that didn't want to miss 1 minute of Metallica.
Okay.
So we're right off the rails here.
Yes, we are.
Grey Cup.
Grey Cup.
So I've paid my money.
Beautiful
I'm ready
thing.
to go. You wanted to talk quickly, Keenan, about what the Grey Cup in 2017 means and what Jim Durrell did back in '88.
I got to tell you, I was driving to the game with my father-in-law and my wife, and he came on, and he almost made me cry. He was reminiscing about the Grey Cup, and I thought, yeah, he's right. This has been some journey, and that was a really great event, even though at the time Lansdowne was just a piece of pavement. And it's going to be amazing, especially when people from other cities realize that they can, spend their days near the stadium and not have to go somewhere to be a part of it all, which that's the way it was before. You came for the game, but everything else, you went all over the city to do things.
I feel like that's what I'm paying to do. I'm making sure I have my ticket for next year and that I can come down for the weekend and just enjoy it. And I magically take my holidays next year, same time as the Grey Cup. So it fits perfect. Beautiful. And my friends already booked a hotel room. So, but you said it, like everything's going to be right then and there. And talk about what those parties were like before here in Ottawa. I mean,
they were good parties, but
exactly.
It was like the lack of a place to come together, I think. And so that's going to change things. And I think from what I understand, it's like which all my friends in the Glebe will be so happy. The entire neighborhood's going to be shut down, and it's just going to be like one giant festival area. But on the bright side, there won't be cars. So it's going to be a trade-off. There might be more urine, but there will be less cars. And so you have to...
What are you watering in November? What are you really watering in November anyways?
Right. Yeah.
It's usually hitting the ground frozen.
Mostly rock gardens now anyway.
Hits the ground frozen. Next year, the CFL awards are expected to be at the Shaw Center, which will be that's a big deal. I mean, it'll be a nice little venue and setting for it. But I'm with you. The concentration of that party downtown will be amazing. I look forward to it, and hopefully we're trending as a team in the right direction to be there, part of that celebration. And that will make, and that's what I say. I don't, one of the reasons why I renewed with the Grey Cup tickets, obviously, and upgraded was I wanted to be part of that next year either way. But I just have this feeling that we could be on our way to a Grey Cup appearance or one or two over the next few years. And I'm gambling that next year is the year that we're there. So
yes, believe.
Quickly, we didn't talk about it much, but the crossover, the good, bad, or the ugly. What's the system like, and how do you feel about it, Keenan?
Well, anything that makes the West wine makes me happy. But trying to be objective about it, and I look at how other leagues handle it, or NFL with the wild card, it works out to a very similar thing, and it's fairly equitable. And I think the East-West, it would not be a great idea to abandon it, as I've heard some commentators suggest. And the league without, Toronto, for example, that is not a good thing.
No.
As much as we like to hate on Toronto sometimes, we need to keep that team viable. And if we just went to a 9-team league, one plays 6, etc., there's a certain math to it. But I think the divisional rivalries are important and a big part of the game, and we'll lose fans if we do that.
I'm with you. I think what we have now with just 3 teams not making the playoffs adds for a kind of an excitement and a possibility of parity somewhat. I'm still believe that Calgary's the team to beat this year, but it allows for some exciting playoff football, which in the CFL can be it comes down to the last 2 minutes, and some of the most memorable games happen.
It's pretty awesome how 2 weeks to go, and every game this weekend, as I understand it, every game matters for playoff position. So that's great news for the league. You
were speaking of whining fans earlier. I got to remind our listeners that we're up for what appears to be the CFL Twitter awards that are circulating, and we just got a message this afternoon, so this is breaking news. Can we get a breaking news that we got a tweet from the CFL Twitter awards account, which I don't know if that's the official CFL or unofficial CFL Twitter awards, that we weren't following them on Twitter. Oops. So they were a little bit butthurt, as the kids like to say about that. And we just wanted to bring it up that maybe next year we'll have our own Twitter awards. It'll be kind of a crossover.
That's a great idea.
Right? Maybe it's I would like to make it a cross between the feeling you'd get if you won a Grammy or a Hebsey Award. If
Somewhere
anybody knows
in that meaty middle.
If anybody knows who Mark Hebscher is here, they're over 40 and remember Susan Day. So we'll just moving right along.
Oh boy.
Moving right along. Cubs versus Indians. Before we get out of here, I gotta ask you, you're a bit of a baseball fan.
Yeah, well, I was a Pirates fan back in the day.
Yeah.
Still follow a little bit.
So you're Pittsburgh across the board with the Penguins or no?
No. Penguins never was.
No, was it Jeremy Jager's hair at the time, or was it just you were a diehard
I was an
Ottawa
impressionable
fan?
child, and in much the same way that I decided the Steelers were my team when I was like 4, I decided a long time ago, not anymore, Buffalo Sabres were my team.
Not bad, not a bad choice.
Yes, and now I am a Sens fan.
Good for you. But so we got Cubs versus Indians. What do we see here? Cubs hammered last night in Cleveland, and I don't know. I thought the Cubs would have the bats to get out of that mess, but boy, Lester looked bad last night. So
I'm gonna go Cubs at this point.
Yeah, I'm still with Cubs in 6, so I can't wait. So we're gonna wrap this up. I want to thank you so much for joining us. Easy gig. Is it easier than your CBC gig that you had a week ago?
Yeah, those are challenging. I had to do educate Robin on a lot of different things. So.
It's fun being in studio with her, though.
Yeah, totally.
And it's 5. You're in there for 5 minutes, which seems like an hour.
And at 7 a.m., nothing better to ask for.
Nothing better to do. No, I had to find parking last time I was there. It was amazing. Yes. So for Saturday afternoon, what time's the game? Do we know?
For Saturday afternoon.
What time is their Red Blacks game? 4 o'clock?
Yes, it is on television.
On television.
Yes.
So what are your plans? How do you take in an away game?
It's rough because there's a Fury game at 2.
Okay.
So I'm going to watch as much of the Fury game as I can, and then I got to blast out to Cumberland Estates to join my father-in-law to watch the Red Blacks on TV, as is our tradition. So apologies to the Fury fans. I will be abandoning you at halftime, but I will leave all my stuff up. I need a remote thing so they could trigger the sirens during a goal. This will be next year's.
Those are the Bytown boys?
Yeah, the Bytown boys are definitely have the strongest connection to Fury fan above.
Last thing on the way out. So USL next year for the Ottawa Fury. It's all the same.
But we'll get to play teams like Montreal, so that's kind of cool.
And that's it. Travel time will be, and there's a team in Rochester, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. Road trip to Rochester. Nothing like. So we'll go to Wegmans while we're there, maybe.
Perfect. Yes. The commercials of our childhood.
Yes.
Rochester.
We'll get one of those. What are those whale cakes there? We'll go down there and get one of those.
That's good.
Genesee beers as well. So once again, Keenan, thank you for joining us. That wraps up the Bleed Red Black show. Full crew back next week, I believe, if nobody else has left the country. Mark's still here, I believe, and we'll see you next week. Thanks for listening. Thanks again, Keenan.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you for stopping by on this week's episode of the Bleed Red Blacks podcast. Follow us on Instagram and Twitter at BleedRedblacks, or like us on Facebook at facebook.com/Bleed Red Blacks podcast.